Good evening, and we come to the next regulation under this code, which is the Insolvency Professional Agencies Regulation 2016. An exercise of the powers conferred by 196, 201, 202, 219, 220, read with 240 of the code. The board hereby makes the following regulations to provide a framework for the regulation of insolvency professional agencies. So let's first go to 196 is the powers of the board. 201, 202 speak about IPAs. That's chapter 3, which starts from 199, 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206 and 207 speak about IPAs, and 219 and 220 of the Act speak about show cause notices to IPAs, IPs or information utilities, and the appointment of a disciplinary committee to adjudicate on complaints relating to the IPAs, IPs and IUs. So this regulation basically deals with two parts. One is about the IPA itself, and second is the DC mechanism and the show cause relating to an IPA. So we first go to definitions. Control shall have the same meaning as assigned under the Companies Act, section 227. Net worth, same thing under 257, which is paid up share capital plus reserves and surplus is the net worth. So we first come to the first regulation, which is under chapter 2, which is regulation 3. No person shall be eligible to be registered as an IPA unless it's a section 8 company. Okay? It should be a not-for-profit company. 2, its sole objective is to carry on the functions of an IPA under this code. It has a minimum net worth of 10 crore, paid up share capital of 5 crore. Its bylaws and governing structure is in accordance with the IBBI model bylaws and governing board of IPA regulations. There is another regulation which governs IPAs, which is the model bylaws of an IPA and the governing board of an IPA, how it should be. Not more than 49% of the share capital is held directly or indirectly by persons resident outside India. It's not a subsidiary of a body corporate through more than one layer. Layer in relation to a body corporate means it's subsidiary. Cannot be a subsidiary. Itself, its promoters, directors and persons holding more than 10% of the share capital are fit and proper persons. Itself, promoter, director and persons holding more than 10% of the share capital are fit and proper persons. For the purpose of this section, what's fit and proper? Integrity, reputation, character, absence of convictions and restraint orders, and competence including financial solvency and net worth. So, the board may take into consideration any criteria to determine fit and proper, including but not limited to the below mentioned cases. Right? So, these are the eligibility criteria. You may want to star 10 crores, star 5 crores, star 10% being fit and proper persons, star not more than 49% of the share capital can be held by persons resident outside India, star section 8 star. These are all facts that you need to remember. Application for registration or renewal. A company eligible for registration shall make an application in Form A of the schedule along with a non-refundable fee of rupees 10 lakhs. An IP who has been granted registration may 6 months before the expiry of registration apply for renewal, okay, along with a non-refundable application fee of, any person who's been granted registration under Regulation 5 may 6 months before the expiry of such registration make an application for renewal in Form A along with a non-refundable application fee of 5 lakhs. Board shall acknowledge the application which is received within 7 days of receipt. They shall examine the application and give the IPA a reasonable opportunity of being heard, and it may require the applicant to appear within reasonable time before the board in person or through its authorized representative for clarifications that they may require. Then we come to Regulation 5. If the board is satisfied after the inspection or inquiry it deems necessary, and having regard to the principles specified in section 200 of the code, which is basically principles governing the registration of an insolvency professional agency. It should promote professional development, it should promote IPs, it should monitor code of conduct, ethical conduct. All these are the principles. They are eligible for registration under 3, which is the net worth, paid up share capital, that criteria, has adequate infrastructure, has adequate number of people in employment, and has complied with the conditions of the certificate of registration, which is they have to pay a non-refundable fee of rupees 10 lakh. Then they will grant a certificate of registration. Okay. The certificate of registration will be granted in Form B within 60 days of receipt of the application, excluding the time given for rectification of defects. Till now we had only 2 timelines. One, within 7 days they have to acknowledge. Within 60 days, excluding the time for rectification, they will have to either accept, it might grant or renew a certificate within 60 days of receipt. The registration shall be subject to conditions that the IPA shall abide by the code, the regulations, the laws, at all times satisfy the requirement under Sub-Regulation 1, which is what? Its eligibility under 3. So it needs to have a continuous net worth. Okay, it cannot fall. Paid up share capital. All that has to be maintained. Pay a 5 lakh rupee fee to the board every year after the year in which the certificate is granted or renewed. So 10 lakhs is the application fee. 5 lakhs is the renewal fee. Okay, before the expiry of the registration, and every year they will pay a fee of 5 lakhs to the board every year after the year in which it is renewed. So 10, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Seek approval from the board where a person other than a statutory body seeks to hold more than 10% directly or indirectly of the share capital. Please star this. So they need to get an approval where any person seeks to hold more than 10%, the exception being a statutory body. Take adequate steps for the redressal of grievances. Abide by such other conditions as may be prescribed. The certificate of registration shall be relevant or valid for 5 years from the date of its issue. So what are they saying? 10 lakhs. After 5 years, you have to pay another 5 lakhs for renewal. And in every year, you have to pay 5 lakhs, which is the annual fee. And in the year of the renewal, you don't have to pay another 5 lakhs. Procedure for rejecting application. If after considering the application, they feel it needs to be rejected, they shall give the applicant a reasonable opportunity of being heard to explain why its application should be accepted within 15 days of receipt of communication from the board. And the communication under this guideline shall be made within 45 days of receipt of the application. So you receive the application, 7 days you acknowledge. Within 45 days you need to tell him, look, I am planning to reject and you please tell me why I should not reject. That other person needs to respond within 15 days. And the overall timeline is 60 days excluding the time limit for rectification of defects. After considering the explanation given, within 30 days they can either accept or reject the application. So it is 7, 45, 15 overall 60 excluding time for defects, 30 days after receipt of explanation. These are the 5 timelines that are specified here. The order rejecting an application shall require the IPA to discharge all pending obligations, continue its functions until the members enrolled with this IPA are actually transferred to another IPA, and to comply with such other directions as may be considered appropriate. At this point, we'll stop here. We finished up to chapter 2 in relation to the IPA. Now maybe we can do one more, which is chapter 4, which is in principle approval for an IPA. Any person who seeks to establish an IPA may make an application for an in principle approval demonstrating that the conditions are satisfied in subregulation 2, along with a non-refundable application fee of *10 lakhs. If the board is satisfied, then it will grant in principle approval for a period not exceeding 1 year. During the validity of the in principle approval, the company may make an application for the certificate of registration as an IPA, but they are not required to pay the application fees again for registration. So this is on in principle approval, which is chapter 4. In this regulation, there are only 2 schedules. One is the application format and second is the certificate of registration format. So just in terms of a quick recap, till now whatever we have done, it spoke about the eligibility criteria to become an IPA. It starts with section 8, 10 crores, 5 crores, not more than 49% shall be held by a person outside, not resident in India. 10% of the people shall be fit, shareholder member holding share capital 10% shall be fit and proper. Then they have to pay 10 lakhs non-refundable fee along with the application. Then the certificate, that will be in form A. Form B is the certificate of registration, which is given by the board. This certificate of registration is valid for 5 years, but every year they have to pay 5 lakhs, but not in the year of renewal, because there I am anyway, when I want to renew, I will again give 5 lakhs. Now, when they receive an application, IBBI has to acknowledge within 7 days of receipt. They will scrutinize and ensure that all the conditions which are specified in regulation 3 and the act itself, okay, the section 200, whether it is complied. Within 7 days they acknowledge. Within 45 days they should tell them, look, I might reject this application, can you tell me why I should not reject it? He must respond within 15 days. And the overall timeline is supposed to be 60 days excluding the time for rectification of defects. When the IPA receives the 45-day timeline communication and he gives his explanation within 15 days, within 30 days they have to accept the application or reject the application. This is the process cycle, just need to internalize it. That's about it. In principle approval, yes, up to 1 year, 10 lakhs. And then during any time during this period, they can go in for they make an application for a certificate of registration. Stay on for session 2 of the Insolvency Professional Agency Regulation.